next spiritual practice I want to talk to you about that opens up our soul to the transforming presence of Jesus is the ancient spiritual practice of Sabbath keeping. Sabbath has transformed and revolutionized my life. It's allowed me to grow closer to God, rest, and replenish my soul. Sabbath has been a gift. Now, the word Sabbath comes from the Hebrew word that means to cease and to stop working. It refers to doing nothing related to work for a 24-hour period of time each week. It refers to this unit of time around which we are to reorient our entire lives as holy unto the Lord. Holy meaning separate and cut above the other 6 days. Sabbath provides for us now an additional rhythm for an entire reorientation of our lives around the living God. On Sabbath, we imitate God by stopping our work and resting. Now, this is the context. Israel lived as slaves in Egypt for over 400 years. They never had a day off, 7 days a week, every day of the year. They were treated as tools of production to make the pyramids. They were doing machines. They worked every day of their lives. Imagine how deeply ingrained activity and overwork must have been in them and for them. They had never observed or experienced a rhythm of work and rest. They had neither permission nor the choice to do so. Living this way meant performing tasks with one day blurring into the next. It was one constant week and month. It all blurred into the next day and the next month. But when God called Israel out of Egypt, he affirmed that they were not human doings. They were human beings made in the image of God. He then showed them how to live according to their God-given nature, which meant to stop and to rest. In effect, God said, it may feel awkward at first, but as a fish is created to live in water, I created you to live according to this divine design, to stop and to rest. Sabbath taught them that they were human beings made in the image of God, not human doings. Observing the Sabbath has been one of society's oldest traditions. We see records of cultures observing the Sabbath for almost 2,500 years before Christ. Now, God spoke to Moses and gave him this specific command in Scripture as one of the 10 commandments in 1300 BC. We read it in Exodus 20, verse 8, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. It's right next to do not lie, do not murder, do not commit adultery. It's the commandment with the most instructions. It is also the very first thing that God named as holy. Sabbath is a gift from God that we are invited to receive. It's a practice that Jesus himself observed as a practicing Jew. Now, for Jews, the Sabbath is still observed from sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday. Productive work is strictly forbidden on that day. And so every Friday afternoon, observant Jews scramble to get last-minute tasks done before the sunset. It's a mitzvah or good deed to clean the house and yourself before the Sabbath begins. And any pets or livestock must be watered and fed for the day ahead. It's deeply ingrained in their culture. So much so that we hear about B&H Photo, which is in New York City. It was named the leading online consumer electronic retailer by Consumer Reports. Newsweek named B&H as one of America's top companies for customer service. Forbes named B&H as one of America's best mid-size employers. B&H's consumer website was recognized as the best for user experience for any e-commerce company by Baymard Institute. Yet, every Friday night through Saturday night, B&H is closed, and that drives me crazy. If you go to their website during those times, you can check it out. It says it's not available. You cannot even order on their website until 8:45 p.m. on Saturday night. And what about Chick-fil-A? They're closed on Sundays, yet it's still one of the top fast food companies in the world. Sabbath is a gift that God invites us to receive and to enjoy. Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. Sabbath keeping has the power and potential to revolutionize your life and ministry if it's observed properly. Now, the Sabbath calls us to build the doing of nothing into our schedules each week. In other words, the Sabbath calls us to take a snow day each week. I love snow days. My kids love snow days. And that's what the Sabbath is. It's a snow day we get to take every week. Nothing measurable is accomplished. By the world's standards, it's inefficient, unproductive, and useless. As one theologian stated, to fail to see the value of simply being with God and doing nothing is to miss the heart of Christianity. Sabbath is also a form of resistance. When we remember the Sabbath, we are resisting busyness. We are eliminating hurry. We resist pride in thinking that the world cannot exist and go on without us. And I know what you're saying. I'm so busy. I've got so much to do. Yeah, I know. Me too. The struggle is real. That's why we need Sabbath. Not only do we rest from work, but the reality is this: we work from rest. The day actually begins, as we read in Scripture, the day started at night, not in the morning. When we wake up each morning from sleeping, we're actually working from resting. That is the principle of Sabbath. We work from rest and rest from work. Now, like a train traveling 100 miles per hour, we've got to pull the brakes, slow down our lives. Pastor, listen, leader, we have to give ourselves permission to slow down and rest. I'm not talking about a day off. I'm not talking about a day off during the week. I'm talking about slowing down our soul and Sabbathing unto the Lord. Because the reality is this: we run. We've got to slow down. I don't even necessarily mean avoid being busy. What I do mean is slowing our soul so that we can recharge and refresh. So Sabbath involves 4 foundational qualities I want to introduce to you today. The first quality is to stop. Let me say it again. Stop. Sabbath is first and foremost a day of stopping. To stop is built into the literal meaning of the Hebrew word Sabbath. And on the Sabbath, we embrace our limits. We let go of the illusion that we're indispensable to running the world. And we recognize that we will never finish all of our goals. We will never finish our projects. We will never complete our to-do list. But God is still on the throne. And He's managing quite well in ruling the universe without our help. That's what Sabbath is about, stopping. Yet most of us can't stop until we're finished with whatever it is we think we need to do. We need to complete those projects. We need to complete those term papers. We need to answer those emails, return those messages, finish that sermon, complete balancing our checkbooks, pay our bills, cleaning the house. There's always one more goal to be reached before stopping. But on Sabbath, I embrace my limit. I recognize that God is God and I am human. I'm not Superman. God is God. He is indispensable. I am His creature. The world continues working fine when I stop. Because the core spiritual issue in stopping revolves around trust. Will God take care of us? Will God take care of our ministries? Will God take care of our families? Will God take care of our lives if we obey Him by stopping to keep the Sabbath? In Mark 6:31, we read, "Then because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, He said to them, 'Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest.' So they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place." I love that example in which Jesus calls His disciples to a place of stopping and a place of rest. Pastor, leader, if we're going to be healthy, we need to include Sabbath. We need to stop to be with God. We must include stopping in our weekly rhythm. The second quality is rest. Because once we stop, then the Sabbath calls us to rest. God rested after His work. We're all to do the same every seventh day. And we read in Genesis chapter 2, verse 2, that on the seventh day, God finished His work that He had done, and He rested on the seventh day from all the work He had done. So God blessed the seventh day and made it holy. because on it God rested from all his work which he had done in creation. What do we do to replace what we're stopping during the Sabbath time? What do we do if we're not doing anything? Well, the answer is simple. We do whatever delights us and replenishes us. For example, in my case, or in my work as a pastor, I work on Sundays. Therefore, my Sabbath is on Saturday. It begins on Friday night and into Saturday. And on that Saturday Sabbath, I purposely engage in activities and people that get my mind off of the thought of work. I go on long walks. I take hikes. I sit at the lake. I sit on my back deck with a cup of coffee. I go for a drive in my Jeep. I work out. I read a non-leadership book. I started drawing and sketching. I go to museums, the symphony. I eat out. I watch a good movie, or I just stay home and take a long nap. I do what replenishes me, but I rest. I avoid my computer. I avoid my iPad. I avoid my cell phone. And anything related to church work or anything that depletes me or drains me. And yes, I don't do church activities on Saturdays. Why? Because I'm human. I'm limited. I can't do anything. I need rest. So when we stop and when we rest, we respect our humanity and the image of God in us. I'll never forget when God spoke this into my heart and my spirit several years ago. I found myself painting the children's wing of our church. I was exhausted. I was burnt out. I was depleted. And I was mad that only one volunteer showed up to help me paint the kids' wing. And as I was painting the kids' wing, mad at the church, mad at people, I heard the gentle voice of God saying to me, well, what are you doing here? And that's when I realized and recognized that I had violated my boundaries. I had violated my limits. And instead of trusting in God, that God would bring the people, I tried to do it myself. It led me to burnout. I'll never forget that moment in which God reminded me on that Saturday that the Sabbath is holy. And he gently corrected me, encouraged me. Rest. God will take care of it. The third foundational quality is delight. A third component to the biblical Sabbath revolves around delighting in what we've been given. On Sabbaths, we're called to enjoy and delight in creation and its gifts. We're called to slow down, pay attention to our food, smell it, taste it, enjoy it. We're going to take time to see the beauty of a tree, a leaf, a flower, the sky that's been created with great care by our God. He's given us the ability to see, to hear, to taste, to smell, and to touch and enjoy food and with all of our senses. When I go into nature, I love to smell the leaves. I love to smell the trees. I also love to smell the roses. I love to sit by the lake and just delight in God's creation and goodness. Let me ask you, what delights you? And don't tell me church. I know that's the spiritual answer. But what delights you? I know church delights us, but I mean outside of church. What do you enjoy to do? What are your hobbies? What invigorates you? What is life-giving? On the Sabbath, God gives you permission to enjoy his creation. And pastor leader, if we're going to be healthy, we've got to push pause. And we have to breathe. And we have to separate that one day as Sabbath to rest and to delight and to disconnect and to unplug and to connect with God in ways that we can't connect throughout the week. Let me encourage you, find a hobby. Make some new friends outside of the church. Do things that replenish and refuel your soul and recreate who you are. The fourth foundational quality is to contemplate. The final quality of a biblical Sabbath is, of course, the contemplation of God. That's why the Sabbath is holy to the Lord. The scriptures read that 6 days you shall work and work shall be done, but the seventh is a solemn day. It's a day of solemn rest, holy unto the Lord. On the Sabbath, I ponder the love of God that remains the central focus of our day. Throughout Jewish and Christian history, Sabbath also included worship with God's people where they feast on his presence, the reading and study of scripture and silence. And for this reason, Sundays remain the ideal time for people that attend our church. But us in vocational ministry, Sunday is a work day. That's why we need to find that day to rest and to Sabbath unto the Lord. On Sundays, we worship, we connect with other believers, we serve and rest. However, the Sabbath is not Saturday, it's the seventh day. Choose whatever seventh day works best for you. As pastors and leaders, I strongly encourage you, take Friday night into Saturday. My 2 days off are Friday to run all my errands and take care of the house. And then Friday night, the entire family gathers together in our home. We order food out and we watch a great movie together and we release everything to God's care. And on Saturday, we unplug, we go on hikes, we do things as a family. We do things that replenish our souls. My wife loves to bake. My wife loves to cook great meals. It's that day that's wonderful for us. And when I go into my church on Sunday, guess what? I am going feeling strong and rested and healthy. I don't go in feeling burnt out and exhausted. I'm leading and living from my best self. So for some of you, you're trying to be Superman. You're trying to do everything. You're flying here and flying there. If you keep up flying and trying to fly, guess what? You're eventually going to crash. And trust me, I crashed many years ago. I was unable to feel, unable to move, unable to operate in my giftings. And what I needed to do and what we need to do as pastors and leaders is to embrace our limits and understand that God is God and we are not. We're not Superman, we're human. And when we embrace those limits, slow down our lives and practice the Sabbath, our soul begins to open up to God's presence. God's strength begins to flood our bodies and our minds. And He gives us a fresh touch of His presence and His Spirit. I love Isaiah 40, verse 31. I'm sure you know it. But in light of the Sabbath, in light of that day of rest, I want you to read this, listen to this verse differently. It says, but those who Sabbath unto the Lord get fresh strength. They spread their wings and soar like eagles. They run and they don't get tired, and they walk and they don't lag behind. Imagine for a moment what your life would look like if you included the rhythm of Sabbath every week. I don't mean a day off when you go shopping, check your emails, do errands around the house, or do things around the house. What I mean, a day to stop, to rest, to delight, and to contemplate. Sabbath is a gift. It's changed my life, and I know it'll change yours. And Sabbath is a gift that God commands us to receive. And my prayer for you is that you discover the gift of Sabbath. So here's the practice. I want to encourage you and your spouse and your family to look at your schedule and set aside a time, 24-hour period of time, and ask your family to join you. Unplug from technology. Don't turn on your phone and the emails and the text messages. I use my Apple Watch, and I only can get phone calls and text messages on my Apple Watch from my wife. I leave my phone at home. Don't go around shopping and running errands. And this is not legalism. This is just recognizing that this day is a day to be with God, to be present with your family. It's a day to rest. It's a day to sleep. Take a nap. Be present with others. Eat great food. Give God thanks for His many blessings on your life. Allow God and His love to fill your soul every week. Because that, my friend, is what God has invited you to. A day of rest, a day to be with Him. It's a gift.